Now we're going to look at another kind of graph called a time series graph. And this is used to show how something changes over time, from one day to the next, or from month to month, or year to year. And the way a time series graph is set up is that time, the independent variable, is going to go across the horizontal axis, so that as you move along from left to right, you're going forward in time. And then the variable that's changing, the thing that's going up or down as you move forward through time, is on the vertical axis. So in this example that we're looking at here, this is a time series graph showing how the average price of a gallon of gas in the United States has gone up or down, how it's changed over the past year. So starting from August of 2019 through August of 2020. You can see it started out at around $2.58 a gallon, went a little above that. It stayed fairly steady for a while. Around the first of the year, it started coming down. It went way down over March and April when the coronavirus pandemic hit. And then it came back up, not all the way, and it stayed fairly level, fairly constant for the last couple of months at right around $2.20 a gallon. Here's a variation on that. This is just over the past month, the average price of a gallon of gas, and this compares what it is in Chicago, which is the red line near the top, in Peoria, which is the green line in the middle, and then the average for the whole state of Illinois, the blue line near the bottom. Over the past month, neither one of those has changed all that much. They've all remained fairly constant, with Chicago the highest and the overall Illinois average lower than for Peoria, which is lower than for Chicago. Here's a graph showing the total coronavirus cases in Illinois from the middle of March through the middle to late August. It's been going up fairly steadily, sometimes faster, sometimes not as fast, sometimes it's looked like it was leveling off a bit. So let's do an example of where we construct one of these time series graphs. So here we've got some data showing the high school dropout rate for students for the years 2003 to 2009. For each one of those years, we have the high school dropout rate for that year. So we have something that's changing from one year to the next. We can show that with a time series graph. And so first I'm going to set up my scale. I'm going to put the years across the bottom, across the horizontal axis. If I do this on graph paper, I can just use the lines on the paper for where the years go. Make sure they're evenly spaced apart. We want to have the same amount of space from one year to the next, to the next, to the next. And then on the vertical axis, running up the side of the graph, that's where I show the thing that's changing over time, the percent dropout rate. When I look at my values here, they're all somewhere from 8.0 to 10.3. So I need to have room to show at least that many numbers here. I've actually got it starting at 7 and going up to 11.5, which goes a little bit farther than I need, but I do at least have room to show all of these numbers. So I didn't start at 0. You can, but you don't have to for a time series graph. But you do have to use a consistent scale. That is, between the lines on the graph paper, you should always go up by the same amount from one line to the next. The way I've got this set up, we're always going up by 0.5. So 7.0 to 7.5 to 8.0 to 8.5 to 9.0 and so on. It's important to use a consistent scale because otherwise the graph doesn't really show what it's supposed to show. It distorts what's really going on. So now we're ready to start plotting some points. There's going to be a point for the year 2003 where we go up to a height of 9.9, just a little bit below the 10.0 mark. So I'll start by putting a dot there. And then the next dot I put on the graph is going to be above 2004 up to a height of 10.3. Put a dot there. Connect the dots, and then go ahead and do the rest of these. The other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots, connecting those. And here's what it looks like. So it looks like the high school dropout rate was highest in 2004, and then it started going down pretty steadily, hit a low point in 2008, then went up a little bit in 2009, not very much, and that's all that we have the data for, but might be interesting to go and look up the years after that and see what happened throughout the next decade. Now, this is what you would do if you were drawing one of these by hand. But what if we want to do this in Excel? So that's really pretty easy to do. I just have to pull up Excel and type in my data. I'll have a column for the years and a column for the dropout rate. So the years are 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. And the dropout rates were 9.9 for 2003, 10.3 for 2004, and I'm going to go ahead and type in the rest of the data. So there's my data. Now I'm going to go up and click on Insert, and I am going to insert it's under the Scatter Plot menu item, and I want the ones where the dots are connected. We don't want just the dots, we want the dots and then the lines connecting them, so I'll pick that. And there we have our graph. And since I labeled the columns, it even put a nice title on the graph, and there's ways of changing that or adding labels to the axes so that you know what this actually represents, things like that. Now, Excel actually did start at 0, went from 0 up to 12. There's ways of changing that. There are ways to get it to only show certain numbers. We won't get into all the details, although when you do your project, I don't think you'll be making a time series graph, but you will be making some graphs with Excel. So we'll see some of the details about how that works. So that's it for this video. Then in the next one, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the next kind of graph that we will look at is pie charts, otherwise known as pie graphs or circle graphs.